Hello and welcome to episode 8 of my Let's Play Krastorio series. In the last episode we cleared a whole load of space. I was getting really hemmed in by the biters, and so I've cleared a whole load of space. North, east and west. But I really need some more space down south, and I'd really just like to get that done so I can get it done and just build in bliss without having to worry about some point in the future having to deal with it. So that's next on the agenda, and I've researched the spider, so I'm going to switch from my tank to the spider, try out some rockets for this batch of biters. I am still really tempted by this tank, this second version of the tank. I want to know why it's special. I mean, it's got to be better than the spider if I can research the spider first. So some point in the future I'll get there, but for the moment, the spider. And whilst we're here, whilst we're in this kind of war section where I'm making all this stuff, this gap, I've been thinking about this gap and how I'm going to fit it, and what I've decided to do, my previous thought was to make it ugly and to just try and bring stuff round. My new thought is that, do I need all of this? Do I need all of this? If I'm moving from a tank to a rocket, do I need cannon shells? I could probably cut this down to just maybe 8, and then I've got a lot more space. And ammunition, the ball is completely full of red ammo now, so this can go. So I think that's how I'm going to deal with this gap. I'm going to get I'm going to get rid of a whole load of stuff, and then that'll give the space for this stuff to come through, and then I can maybe make some stuff here that will be useful. I'm still thinking I want my railgun ammunition and my the other ammunition or whatever it is. There's a couple of turret ammunitions that I don't have and I want, and it'd be nice to have them in this section. So yeah, let's build a spider. Let's get some rockets. Let's clear some more biters.
A few moments later.
Absolutely immediate revision to that plan, because the spider requires an AI core, and that requires Immersight, and I don't have that set up. So we're going straight back to the tank. I'm just going to carry on with the tank. God damn it. Alright, okay. I think that's all of it. That's it. Okay, that's one big stretch done. But I don't think we've really finished yet, because I want more space. This is going to expand down. Who knows how big it's going to be, what I'm going to need. I want more space, so I'm going to do exactly the same again. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the camera from here, where we are at the moment, all the way over to here, because the ammunition kind of goes clockwise. So if I start extending my wall from this side of the base, then I get that ammunition that feeds the turrets that I need. If I do it from this end, then I've got to feed them by hand. So we'll go right back to here. Maybe I should have thought about this a bit better and started over here, worked down, gone down, but I didn't. We are where we are. So camera's going to go back to here, and then we're going to clear some more biters. Fun times. plan. Alright, so we have a lot of space now. Loads of space. I don't think I have to worry about that again, hopefully. That's the plan. I mean, to be honest, even if I find that I'm butting up against something down here, I can still, I've got loads of space of other places I can use. So, even worst case scenario, we should be fine. So, oh hello, let's get back to, I was just saying hello to some robots that I've lost. Let's get back to the factory and robots. Well, I need to play around with the war section. I need to get that cleaned up, get the extra bits of ammo sorted that I need, railgun ammo, and the other one, whatever it is, I still can't remember what it was. But then I want robots. Really need some robots and some roboports. Really, really need those. So let's get back on the factory. Sweet. Okay. So what the primary issue for my factory at this moment in time is that I've got a huge blockage of trains caused by a single train which is out of fuel, and I didn't really want to fix it. I didn't really want to go and put some fuel in it until I'd sorted out all the robots so that all of the train stations now had an automated fuel supply, because you know I could fix it now and I could have another train just go down straight away. So I didn't really want to sort it. So now that I've got a robot network in, just release some logistic robots to get some fuel in these train stations. I'll give it a little while, and then I'll fix the trains once we finish speaking. So I just wanted to release those robots so they're doing their thing. Now in terms of factory, obviously I've been working away, building some big old units, big old stuff, big old blocks of things. And it's just kind of, it's reminded me of my experience, it doesn't really remind me, it's made me reminisce about my experience in Angel and Bob, where the factories I was building were a lot more chaotic. There was a lot more of a creative process behind them. You know, I made much more, I made use of space in slightly different ways than the ways that I'm making use of space in here, and that's fundamentally as a result of the robot ports. You know, I've set up these horizontal slices. They're not horizontal throughout the base. They change orientation, but I've got these slices, and they're separated by whatever the robot port can span. So that's the maximum extent that it can go. So, you know, I need continuous robot coverage over this part of the factory, because I've got lots of different chests, lots of different individual processes, and all of them need to be picked up on the robot network so that I can get them when I call for them. And so the freeform process that I was using in Angel and Bob, which, to be honest, you know, it always required a certain amount of jerry-rigging, imposing the roboport network on it. I didn't really come up with this strategy until much later. So it was always a complete pain in the backside putting a robot network down. But equally, the factory layout itself was always a lot more pleasing to me. And I suppose what I really need to be able to get back to that sort of creativeness that I'm kind of craving for, I would need some kind of roboport that would span further. Hang on, have I? Wait a second. See, I thought I'd checked, but maybe I haven't. There is, of course, a large roboport. Oh, wowzers. Oof, that's going to be tricky to accommodate. That's a big boy. That's a big boy. So I suppose I could have a much greater size of my slices, but I would have to accommodate some just ginormous things. How would I do that? How big is one of these? Eight. See, I want my creative process back. I want my freeform factory back. But that's a big thing to just suddenly try and find a space for. That's not an easy thing to do. But I do want it. Alright, well, that's something to ponder for the next factory. Add it to the rest of all the other things that I'm finding out on this journey. And it's probably worth mentioning, in the last episode, we talked about trains and inserters and about loading a certain amount of material onto a train and how it was difficult because stack sizes are different in Krastorio as they are in vanilla. And then someone, a couple of people actually, pointed out that there are these loaders, which when I set up the block for conveyor belts, I did look at, and I was like, should I try and find a space for these? And I couldn't find a good reason as to why to include them. So I didn't build them in. And now I probably could do with some of them. So that's another thing for the next factory that I will definitely include. It's not going to be straightforward. The conveyor belt block is pretty tightly packed, and there's not a lot of space. But I suppose if I start using bigger roboports, then I'm going to have a bit more space. Oh man, okay. Anyway, next factory, some of these need to go in, and I'll start thinking about maybe some of wherever they are, the bigger ones. Oh, where have they gone? Wherever the big things are, these things, the big roboports, I'll think about those in the next factory as well. But anyway, to this factory. So what I've been concentrating on is some of the bigger stuff, some of the bigger blocks that I need to make. You know, there are some things that we need a lot of, and they take a long time to make, and that's what I needed to set up. You know, these things are relatively straightforward to set up, if I'm being completely honest. I have a number, I have a target, that gives me a certain number of assembly machines, and I just lay down that number of assembly machines. So in the grand scheme of things, what I'm actually looking for, where is it? Here we are. Is a certain amount of science, which is 15 science per second. That's the total. That's what I've built for science, maximum production wise. So I'm just trying to meet that target really. And a couple of things that we need as a part of this science are electric engines, 15 of them, and 30 lithium sulfur batteries. So in order to have 15 engines, we need, where's my little thingamajig, there it is. In order to get 15 electric engines, we need 120 assembly machines, and in order to get 15 electric engines, we also need 15 normal engines, so we also need another 120 for the normal engine as well. So that's kind of the target. It's kind of based on this. I don't actually think that I don't think this factory is going to actually achieve this number. I'm pretty certain that something will bottleneck it before. You know, there's a lot of products in here, and it's entirely possible that something will become the critical thing before all these other things that I'm making. But in order to properly investigate what those critical things are, I need it to not be all these other things. You know, the electric engine, I don't want the electric engine to be the critical thing. I want that to be the other processes. So in order to meet these targets, I need the fringe process to at least meet these targets, and then I can investigate the larger factory as a whole. Because, you know, I haven't done any kind of SPM calculations on what's necessary. I haven't made a spreadsheet, which is what I did in vanilla, and that spreadsheet really kind of guides me whenever I do a vanilla factory. That's what I go by, the vanilla by my spreadsheet. But and I suppose I could do a spreadsheet for Krastorio. It's just it's not actually all that much work. I think I can probably do it in a couple of hours, but it's just a stressful thing. You know, if you've got a set of targets, then those targets will say that you need a certain number of assembly machines. Say, let's say, for a particular process, we need like 1,260 or something assembly machines for a particular process. And I tend to take those targets pretty seriously. I tend to aim for them as rigidly as I can. And that becomes stressful for me. You know, I'm counting the assembly machines. There might be 1,200 whatever the number was on the map, on the page, on the screen. But I'm counting all of the individual ones that are more or less than that. You know, and ultimately, what I found with the last factory that I did, which was the racetrack, was that I meticulously planned it out. I tried to get all of the ratios absolutely perfect. I tried to get all of the belts perfect. I spent a good few hours trying to optimize it, and the whole factory was kind of bottlenecked by a single junction in the steel process, where the steel came out and joined the rest of the other belts. I had joined them together like so. So I had a series of factory units over here and a series of factory units over here, and they were both joining to the belt like so, just butting up against it. And I couldn't get this to work perfectly. There seemed to be some sort of imbalance when there was like 7 or 8 factory units all tied to this belt like so. And I could not get it to load the belt perfectly, even though the mathematics of the whole thing were perfect. There seemed to be like one piece of steel every now and then that didn't get loaded onto the belt, and you could visibly see a gap on the belt. It wasn't fully full, even though all of the maths suggested that it was perfect. So, because I'd laid it down this way, instead of laying it down in this way, you know, the way that I kind of tell people to lay it down. Oh no, that's not right. Here we go. Let's get it right. Instead of joining together with something like this, which should load the belt perfectly, evenly, you know, I shouldn't have had any problems with it, but it is a lot more cumbersome than something like this, and I'm not sure I had enough space in the base to be able to change to a system that loaded the belt like this to a system that did it like this. I think I'm pretty sure I went for a system like this specifically because I needed that space. So the whole base, even though I'd meticulously planned the whole thing out, you know, I tried to get as close to perfect as I could. The whole thing was limited by a series of these sort of junctions in the steel furnaces, which didn't reduce it much. We're talking maybe one piece of steel every 40 or 50. You know, it wasn't a lot, but spread over, when I'm producing, I don't know, what was it, 100, 150 steel, 200 steel, you know, that's 4 or 5 pieces every second that I'm not getting in the base. And that, I'm pretty certain that was a reason why ultimately the target that I was trying to achieve in the racetrack I didn't meet. It's because the steel wasn't being loaded to the belt properly. And so all of that planning was just completely pointless, because a simple mistake, not really a mistake, but a single decision caused that base to bottleneck. And it wasn't anything of the stuff, any of the numbers, anything else. Everything else was perfect as far as I was aware. It was this single thing that caused it not to be perfect. So, to get back to the point of what I'm really talking about, is that I don't really want to do a whole spreadsheet for this because, well, a couple of reasons. One, because it's stressful, you know, trying to get something perfect and meticulously planning it out. And I said it before, I'll say it again, you know, this isn't a set of mods I've ever done before, so it's still new to me. I didn't really want to get to that level of detail as the first base. And I'm not really sure that I'd want to either. I'm not going to pursue Krastorio in the same way that I did Agent of Bob, where in Agent of Bob I was in there for a good couple of years, plugging away at the same base trying to get it perfect. For me, this is just like a stepping stone. So I'm immediately the next base, the ones that I'm talking about when I'm planning out the changes that I would make if I was doing this base again. It's really aimed at a Krastorio SpaceX base. That's really the next base that I'm planning in my mind. I'm not intending on sticking at Krastorio, and the real reason, and the reason for that is because it doesn't feel difficult enough for me. I want to feel like Factorio is beating me up a little bit when I play this game. I want to feel like things are breaking all the time. You know, I'm constantly having to fix problems. You know, I'm constantly learning new things about the game, about different formulas, about different recipes, about different ways that people can challenge you. Because in Agent of Bob, there are a few little processes which were very, very difficult to get just right. You had to have complex circuit networks and pumps and conveyor belts which went in different directions. There was a delicate balance being played, and so far I haven't really had that sense in Krastorio. It's been a nice excursion, I'm not going to lie, and we are definitely not done. Do not get me wrong. You know, this is going to get finished, but from a long-term perspective, that's how I see Krastorio. It's just a bit of fun. It's not going to tax me in the way that Angel and Bob did, and that's really the experience that I'm craving at the moment, if I'm being honest. Something that really difficult, something that really gets me going. I'm in pies. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about it. So that's all of that spiel. That's where I am with this part of the factory. I'd quite like a bit more creative freedom, and so these large row reports are very tempting. I'm going to have a think about that, and I'm definitely in deep thought about how I would lay this out differently. I mean, to give you an example, one thing that I've learned in building this is that I need a lot of, is it chlorine, to mine rare metals. I think it's chlorine. Whereas with uranium, we need one sulfuric acid to get one piece of ore out the ground. With rare metals, it's 2.5 chlorine to get one rare metal out the ground. It's 2.5 times more of the liquid, the base liquid that we need to mine it with. So at the moment, I'm producing my chlorine in here, I think, somewhere, and it's got to make its way all the way down here, all the way up here, all the way across here, and up here into the rare metals train station, and that really needs to be placed much closer. You know, in a better planned out base, this would be much closer to where the chlorine production is. You know, there's a few optimizations that I want to make in the layout. I've been talking for way too long. What's next? Next is to fix these trains, and then I think I've got a kind of I think it's either going to be lithium or it's going to be imersite. I haven't decided yet. We'll see what I fancy. Right, let's go and fix some trains. And we have imersite. It's mostly sorted. Mostly. I say that because I haven't switched any of this on. And the reason is because it's all hidden behind science. I haven't unlocked yet. So I've built it thinking that I could get it sorted and turn this on, but I can't. So that's going to have to wait for a moment. But what I do want to talk about, just for a quick little moment, is sand. I've probably talked about sand quite a lot in this series of episodes, but whenever I looked at Immersite over the course of building this factory, I saw sand, and I just assumed that it was an input. And then an input, not really a problem, but it's not an input, it's an output. And it turns out that we need to output quite a lot of sand. And that's an issue because that sand needs to go somewhere. I don't really want to just put it in a chest and forget about it. So it's got to be it's got to go somewhere, and then that sand has got to be used. And it turns out to be a complete pain in the backside. What I've discovered, so this is the process, this is the route that sand has to go through. We output sand. Sand then goes to chlorine, makes chlorine. Chlorine then goes to the rare metals train station, gets on a train, goes to a rare metals mining place, dumps a whole lot of chlorine down, picks a whole lot of rare metals up. Those rare metals get brought back into the factory, get processed, enriched, and turned into the rare metals that gets put on the conveyor belt and brought down into the factory. That gets brought back in, and then that makes the sand, because we need to mix that with the plates, which I can't show you because we haven't unlocked it yet. We need to mix it with the Immersite raw ingredient that comes out of all of this, and that's the circular process that it needs to be managed. So the sand comes out, chlorine comes all the way up here, chlorine goes to a train station, rare metals come back, rare metals come down into the Immersite, and that's the circular process that I need to manage. You know what, I'm going to do a little bit of a calculation just to see what that balance is. I want to work out what it is. Give me 2 minutes. Okay. Nope. 45 sand gives chlorine. Here we go.
45 sand gives 90 chlorine. 90 chlorine gives 36 raw. 36 raw. 36 times 6. 36 times 6 is 9. 24 enriched gives us 24 rare. And 24 rare is 36 sand.
Okay, that's nice. That's really, really nice. So the 45 sand that I output to make chlorine returns, once it gets back again, into 36 sand. So there's a 9 sand deficit. So I need to add to this sand in order to... maintain that balance with that whole circular process I was just explaining. So in my mind, I was worried about, once this sand comes out, what if I've got too much of it? If there's too much sand down here, then I would need to bring it all the way up into the glass silicon part of the factory. At the moment I've got a whole lot of sand that comes down here, feeds into chlorine, which is here, comes down, feeds into chlorine. And if I was creating too much sand, then I would have to reverse those belts and bring them back up again. But I'm not. I'm still in deficit of sand. So this overall balance, I'm happy. Okay. That's good. Sand has been a real pain in the backside for this Krastorio. At the start of this process, we don't have anywhere near enough of it, and I spent quite a lot of effort making sure I had an abundance of sand so that I knew I would have all of it. And now it turns out that at this point, once we bring Immersite online, we have way too much sand. And I suppose I go back to what I said I think it was in the last episode about the balance of stone and how much I was bringing in. Because I'm bringing in the same amount of stone as I am the iron and copper. But this changes things. This would require a much, much lower amount of stone than I previously thought. But only at this point in the base. I suppose that's the thing. There's a phasing. What are we in? We're into 212 hours. For the first 212 hours, we needed a lot of sand. And now for the next, however long it takes, we're going to have too much of it. Oh, okay. Okay. Alright, so next is sulfur. I need to sort out some sulfur batteries. That's one of the things on the science that I need in order to research this immersite stuff. But for now, I think that's it for this episode. So, I hope it's been good. Till next time.